Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where everybody is today. My name is Jim McDonald with Torrey Hills Capital. Pleased to be hosting today's call featuring Mogotes Metals, a mineral exploration company exploring for copper and gold in the highly prospective Vicuña district of Argentina and Chile. Company's flagship project, Filo Sur, is neighbors with and along the same north-south trending belt as the Filo del Sol's Aurora deposit and NGEx Minerals' Lunahuasi and Los Helados copper gold deposits. Company trades in the US on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol MOGMF. Also up in Canada on the TSX Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol MOG. Joining me today from the company, I have Alan Sabet, the company's president and CEO. Before I turn the call over to Alan, just want to go through logistics fairly quickly. Nothing new here for people that have been on calls with me in the past. Excuse me, just a little bit more of a reminder. Our webinars are intended to replicate our in-person meetings, which we like and encourage to be as interactive as possible. With that in mind, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask them. The best way to do so, use the navigation pane at the bottom of the screen, click on the Q&A or the chat button. We'll see that, get those questions presented and answered for you. If for some reason we don't get to your question immediately, it's not that we're ignoring it or don't see it. It's simply that we know it's going to be answered in the next one, two, or three slides, and we're going to let the normal course of the presentation take care of it. And we'll get to it that way. Alternatively, if you want to speak to Alan at any point during the call, we can accommodate that as well. The best way to do that, or the only way to do that, is use the raise hand button at the bottom of the navigation pane. Click on that. We'll be able to see that, unmute your microphone, and allow for direct conversation back and forth. As with all of our calls, I will remain on throughout, but take myself off of both video and audio so as not to be a distraction, but we'll be on there to manage questions as they come in. So again, keep it interactive, lots of questions. Good timing to hear this story. And with that, let me turn it over to Alan.
Thanks a lot, Jim, and welcome everybody. Mogotes Metals is a copper exploration company looking for copper in what we believe to be the best place in the world to look for copper. Is my audio coming through at a decent enough volume, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. I'm going to walk you through a presentation that talks mostly about our targets, and happy to address questions at any time. This is a little bit about the company. We're listed on the Toronto Venture Stock Exchange. The code is MOG. We're also on the OTCQB. The code is MOGMF. And the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. We have $25 million in the bank, and we are supported by a number of very well, I would say, experienced exploration-focused investors who are institutions. Our shareholding is, split between management, institutions, and retail, with a large percentage of institutions here. And some of these names have invested in exploration companies for many years and are quite sophisticated. In addition to the logos you see here, we're supported by a family office called the Braun family out of Argentina, and they're a well-known business family in Argentina who recently put a $9 billion check into the company to support the exploration efforts that we have. So we're a management team with significant experience in copper gold exploration in South America. A number of the members of the board of directors and technical advisors and management have been involved with multiple discoveries of mineral systems, and or are on the boards of or management of listed companies who have been exploring in the Andes, in Argentina and Chile, and other similar settings for porphyry copper gold and epithermal systems. So we can come into this a bit later. I'm more interested to show you where we are and what we're looking for. As I said, we have a strong view here that this district, called the Vicuña district, is a very well endowed district for copper and gold. The reason we believe that is because right next to us, our direct neighbor, Filo del Sol, was bought by BHP and Lundin for $4.5 billion. So this is us here. This is a satellite imagery of our exploration and mining properties that we're currently exploring. And this is Filo del Sol, which is it's been the subject of an acquisition, which is quite large, 4.5 billion Canadian dollars. And it's now known to be the largest greenfield copper discovery of the last 30 years. So, and it's basically more or less where this red line is that I've drawn. So that spans about 5 kilometers. And right next to it is where our ground begins. And we have a quite substantial ground position here in this district. And we have about 13, 14 kilometers of strike on the belt and about 7.5 kilometers of width. Total area of about 120 square kilometers. So we're situated directly next to the biggest copper discovery of the last 30 years in Filo del Sol. And even further up on this north-south trending belt, we have another discovery called Lunahuasi. And that is today valued approximately at 5 billion. This is a little bit out of date. The valuations just keep climbing. And that's with a company that's called NGEx Minerals. And then further up in this belt, there are other deposits as well. And if you go south of here, there's other deposits too. So we're in a really well endowed mineral district, and we have a sizable chunk of that district. Our valuation today is around 100 million Canadian dollars, 107 million Canadian dollars. And looking at the valuation of the peers who have made discoveries already, you can see there's tremendous upside to be gained if a discovery is made. And that's what we hope to do here. And we've been exploring here for 3 years, and we're now on our 4th field season here. Just starting today, we're having drill rigs turning. The drill rig has started turning on some of our targets here. And if we find something, then, it'll be a very exciting outcome for us in terms of a discovery. So we are in, again, what I think is the best place in the world to be looking for copper. Where there's one, there's often more. And that's what you're seeing here with these two. And we hope that we can make it even more successful with our exploration program. So where exactly is this satellite image taken? This is taken at the intersection of Argentina and Chile. So this is now top down. Our ground sits across the border. On the right side of this image is Argentina. On the left side is Chile. And you can see the Filo del Sol, our neighbor, also the deposit sits across the border. That's not unusual in the settings because the border is demarcated by the high mountain line that you can see here. So we're sitting in the border between Argentina and Chile in two favorable jurisdictions for mining. And this orange thing that you're seeing coming from north to south, that's the middle Miocene aged belt of or trend of mineralization. That's the age of the rocks. When we say middle Miocene, that's approximately 14 to 16 million years old. And that's what we're seeing in the age dating that we have on our property. We've age dated a number of rock samples over here in this area, and they fall into the range of rock ages that you see over at Filo del Sol in the public literature and further afield in this belt. So the trend of that mineralization runs north to south, and we are the southern projection or extension of this belt, which is an exciting place to be. Now we're looking at some panels that have taken satellite imagery, commercially available satellite imagery, and classified them up into alteration assemblages. So these whites and these reds are kaolinite or alunite alteration as identified by this satellite imagery. And this is significant because what it's showing here is a preserved advanced argillic alteration system running from Lunahuasi through to Filo and then continuing into our exploration property, which is exciting. Stepping back, now we've highlighted on the left here. Again, this is our ground. These circles are the exploration target areas that we're looking to do further exploration in. We have a lot of data here over the last 3 years. We've spent about 20 million Canadian dollars working here. And that's because it was relatively underexplored when we came on. There was relatively limited electrical geophysics, sampling, mapping, and even roads to access this kind of terrain. We've done a lot of that work over the last 3 years and identified these target areas that you see in the blue as areas that warrant drilling and further exploration. So I'll just label them briefly here so you can see their names. It's not important to remember them. We'll go through that later, but these are kind of the focus of our exploration after 3 years of work. And I'll show you why we like some of these later on in the presentation.
Quick question for you, Alan, while
yeah,
we have a little bit of a break there. So, what is the elevation at the property, and then does the elevation pose any exploration challenges?
That's a good question. I'm going to come down here. Don't get dizzy. This is the floor of our property. Okay, so what you can see here is that we're in mountainous terrain. Our camp is situated around here. Okay, so that's about 4,200 meters elevation. And then, as you come up this mountain, you can see that we've made a track up here. You get up to the 4,600 mark. And at the very northern tip of the property, where you get into Filo del Sol, that's at 5,200, 5,300 meters. So we've got a variety of elevations. That's quite good for us because we're able to put our camp at a lower relative elevation. We have some lower relative elevation targets, some medium ones, and some high ones. And some of this is advantageous as well because we've got access from the lower bits of the valley. On this side, for example, we can drill lower in to the target and save ourselves from drilling, several hundreds of meters from the top. So we have a variety of elevations on the project. It does pose a challenge in the sense that it makes operating a little bit more difficult. Like high altitude requires a lot of health precautions, safety precautions. Fuel burns less efficiently at that altitude. Helicopters have struggled to fly. So things generally the consequence of it is it's more expensive, but it's still workable.
Perfect. Thank you. That was the only question currently.
Okay, great. So we were talking about the targets that have been developed, and I'll show you some of the data. It's important to understand it's quite simplified here for the purposes of this presentation. But what you have here, for instance, is geophysical data, and that's taken from publicly disclosed information from Filo del Sol on the right side. It's important to note we didn't collect this data, and we can't verify or validate what it's saying, but this is publicly disclosed information from Filo del Sol at 600 meters below surface. It's an MT survey result, and what they've said in their disclosures is that the reds are the hotter areas are the more conductive rocks at 600 meters below surface. So I'm just circling what's obvious from the image, but this is very conductive according to them. And this was identified as the anomaly that's guiding or has helped or correlates well with the Filo mineralization. So that's Filo del Sol you're seeing there. And the MT geophysics was very effective at finding conductive rock, which seemed to, in this case, identify a really good envelope for the mineralization there. So that's Filo. And what we see on the right here is actually a new prospect, I believe, that's being worked up by the neighbors, the Lundin Group. And that's called Cumbre Verde. So that's being worked on now. And we don't have data for the geophysics all the way into here, but this is Lunahuasi area. And I don't know if it's out of line to assume that this would be similar. I guess we'll have to see. On our side, on our project, we've actually done ourselves an MT survey as well. And we've presented the results here at 600 meters below surface as well for sort of a comparison. Importantly, the people at Filo did not release a scale, so we actually don't know what specific colors map to what ohm meter resistivity levels. Well, what we did here was do what we thought was sensible based on benchmarking in the rest of the porphyry deposits we're seeing in recent literature. And so what we have based off of this is at a similar level, multiple undrill tested anomalies in the MT geophysics that represent attractive targets for our drill campaign. Okay, so these are our targets, and I'm showing you with our drilling on. And what you're seeing there is, look, these are drill holes that have historically been done on our property. There is none in this one. This one has one on the periphery, and these 4 targets here have 0 drill holes in them whatsoever. And we've got this one with no drill holes. And here in the south, we've actually put an IP survey draped over this at 600 meters depth because of conductive cover. And here we've got one on the periphery here, but we're finding that the target needs to be redefined. So lots of exciting targets in our geophysics. This is just one depth slice of 1 or 2 geophysical methods. And we're finding that a number of the geophysical data sets we have work together to paint a picture of an attractive target in many of these cases. So that's under the surface. I showed you alteration at the surface. The other thing I'm showing you now is the copper in soil signature at the surface. So what we've done here is show Filo del Sol, copper in soil signature on the right-hand side, digitized again from their publicly disclosed data in their technical reports. The soil point data was digitized and gridded up. And on the left-hand side is the data from the Filo Sur project. That's our project. Important to note, we did a lot of work to get this data on the Argentina side. We have not yet come in and sampled this part of the project with soil grid. So this is not empty. I suspect it would also be anomalous were we to add that to the grid. But what we're seeing generally across this system is lots of anomalous copper in soils across just a massive area, ranging from all the way to the end of Filo del Sol through to the end of our project. And it paints a picture of a big copper system that's moving a lot of metal around and gives us encouragement as well of the prospectivity of the system. Just going underground briefly to show you, we've collected IP chargeability data sets, magnetic data sets in both TMI mag and VRMI mag. These are different ways of processing the magnetic data to understand where's the magnetic anomalies. This is MT data. We combine all the three together and we look at those things in combination with surface geology and geochemistry. And that's what defines the targets that I showed you previously from the top down. And now we're kind of put into first person view in the northern end of the property. This is like on the top of the mountain, the northern tip of the Filo Sur project. Some of this is inference. I mean, it doesn't exactly look like this, but we're at the top of the mountain. Looking to the north, you see Filo del Sol. One of the closest holes here is 610 meters of pretty impressive mineralization, almost right at the surface. And really one of the last holes that was publicly disclosed by Filo before they were purchased and no longer disclosed their drilling results. And, you know, you're looking at the end of, when you stand here, you're looking at the end of the biggest copper discovery of the last 30 years. You're standing on our ground and you're looking to the left and saying, hey, what are the odds that this is it? And it stops right here. So it's really exciting. This is a step out view of the same. And I could draw here the Filo del Sol pit design. And, you know, on their resource, I'll show you later, but they marked it as open to the south, north, east, west, and at depth, which is impressive. You can see the drill roads there, and this is our boundary with Filo del Sol. Our Meseta target happens to sit right here. And we're excited about all of the targets in our portfolio, but I'll show you a few of them now in the coming pages. Just a brief review of Filo del Sol, what it is really a large copper system, and copper, gold, silver, actually. You can see some of the drilling that's been conducted here. These are all drill holes, and the legend on the right-hand side tells you the grades. Some very high-grade parts here. Its copper resource is listed here for you to refer to. Let me see what I can do in terms of change this grade to copper. Yeah, you can see the copper numbers separate from the gold numbers. There's a gold-rich zone here in the epithermal part. And it's quite a lot of copper, but if you join them all together, it's impressive. You know, and talking about the byproducts like gold and silver, gold, if you add these two together, something like 67 million ounces of gold and over 1 billion ounces of silver. So it's not just copper, it's gold and silver in there too. And I think it ranks quite high in the global rankings for silver discoveries as well, which not a lot of people know. So a really impressive deposit. And the resource was really announced by Lundin Mining and BHP jointly a few months ago. And what you're seeing here, it might be a bit jittery on the frame rate. I hope not. But what you're seeing here is that they've also marked it as open to the south and open at depth. So that's exciting for us because we are the south. Now, coming back to, let me just pause here for a second, actually. Is the frame rate any good, Jim? Any issues? And is there any questions for us?
Frame rate, all that is excellent. There are a couple of questions. So first is it fair to say that you have more/bigger area of drill targets?
I assume that the comparison there, more versus Filo, is that the question?
It doesn't say that, but I would guess that that is probably the comparison.
Look, they're in a world-class discovery that's the best thing that's been found in 30 years. So I don't want to be saying we've got more. I mean, look, as much as this is a big, huge amount of mineralization, that if you look in space and see how much room there is to drill left, right, and center, there's a lot of room there. But yes, it's true. If I looked at maybe if I go back to the beginning, give me a second here. If I looked at the belt running from north to south and I said, okay, what's the area of this and what's the area on this belt of Filo? It's true in that sense that we have a bigger area, but I wouldn't use that as the main comparison point for prospectivity. I think we look at it, the thing holistically and say how much, compelling geology, geochemical results, geophysical targets, or how these all things tie together. We do have a variety of targets, and I'm not aware of how Filo is thinking about their broader package in terms of targets in recent times. In historic times, they had also a portfolio of targets, and they would have been thinking like us and developed a number of different targets that were prioritized. And one of them panned out to be that monster Aurora hole 41 at some stage. So I think that was in 21.
Okay. Second question here is, are you expecting more gold or copper, or is that to be determined?
It's to be determined. Again, the nature of some of these targets are different. So some of them are actually high sulfidation precious metals targets. So for instance, on this belt here, that you can see the high altitude bits that are called, give me a second here, Meseta and Perla. These are high sulfidation precious metals targets. We believe that Cuenca, pointing to this back thing here, this represents potentially an intermediate sulfidation system. So this, and this, we expect more of the gold and silver type elements, but we don't know until we drill. Whereas this Los Mogotes represents a porphyry target, we expect a higher, I don't know relative to gold, but we expect more copper in there. If it is mineralized, again, we have to drill. And it is Cruz del Sur and Stockwork Hills targets. Here we know that this southern target, Stockwork Hills, has more copper, and the northern target, Cruz del Sur, has more gold. But we don't know now when we do, if we make a discovery here, we know it from the surface only. We don't know what we'll see in any discovery, if there's any. So to be determined, but we do have some expectations based on the geological characteristics of the targets, what we're drilling into.
Okay. And then I think you mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that as of today, the drills are turning.
Yes.
Can
One
you?
rig at the moment. We're going to be adding another later on in the season if all goes well. That program is starting at Stockwork Hills, low altitude, and we're moving up from there. So we're currently focused on setting up this target, number of holes, and then we're going to this one. And from there, our priorities include for this season those two targets, this one, and I have to turn this off to pivot. But in the north, we're also looking at work on these clusters as well.
Okay. Yeah. And that was my question is where you were drilling today and sort of the path of expectation.
Yeah. Okay. I think uh, I've answered that one, right, Jim?
Yep. You're good. I will let you continue.
Okay, good. I think, I mean, we've kind of covered the high level points here. We've seen compelling data at a regional scale of alteration, the age dating of the rocks. We've seen copper in soils across this district. We've seen geophysical signatures that resemble those of our peers here. And together we've worked through all of that and seen that we've got some compelling targets. The next bit of this presentation will go into some of these targets in more detail, and explain a little bit about why we like them, and then we'll open for some questions, and that will be more or less the end of the show. So let me start with the Los Mogotes target in the north. So give me a second. Let me go there. Okay, here we are in the north of the project, and we're looking towards Filo del Sol. On the colors that you're seeing, this is the alteration that we mentioned before. That's advanced argillic alteration. I've now put on our targets for reference with labels. You understand what we're looking at? This is the Meseta target, high sulfidation epithermal target, Los Mogotes target, which is a porphyry copper gold silver target, and Cuenca. So stepping out a little bit here and showing you some of the soil data in different elements. So this is our copper in soils grid. And here we can see highly anomalous copper in soils open into this area that we're looking at here, into our target area of interest. Okay. What we're also seeing in the next slide is gold and silver also open. Now I'm going to show you in the data that we've got from sampling what we're seeing over some of these targets that we like. So in this case, what we're looking at here is we're focusing in on the Los Mogotes prospect. And here we see in the stream sediment samples, which are these triangles, as the colors get more and more towards the reds and yellows, you can see the scale over here. The copper concentration is increasing, going upstream. So it's almost vectoring us, pointing us into this area with increasing copper. So that's quite a compelling signature to see in the stream data. In the rock chip data, which is the squares, you're actually seeing a cluster of anomalous copper in rocks, some of them more enriched than others, in up to 0.5% copper here at the surface. This is exciting when you look at it, copper vectoring in, anomalous copper in the rocks, lots of alteration, and then we check out the geophysical signature and see what we're seeing there. And that's what I've pulled up here. So this is now looking at underground geophysics, which I'm going to go through in a second. And I'm going to build it up one by one so it doesn't cause too much confusion. So bear with me. Turning these things off, and then I'll build them back up. So the first thing we're going to look at is MT resistivity. MT is the data set I showed you at 600 meters below surface before. So now I've created a little 3D image here of MT resistivity at 100 ohm meters or less, which is, in relative terms to other things we're seeing in the districts around us, it's quite conductive. So 100 is quite a big, quite a conductive number. And so what we have here is a large scale anomaly at a really conductive number in the MT geophysics, directly on trend to the Filo del Sol deposit. How big are we talking about here? Well, you can see this concentric circles inside there. That's even more conductive. So I can bring this down to 75 and we still have a huge shape. Can even bring it down to 50. We've still got a pretty massive size shape here. So this is a really compelling resistivity low anomaly here. Again, measurements, we're looking at something like 1.5 kilometers by 600 meters or so at that really conductive level. What makes this exciting is that I showed you already the exciting geochemical data sitting above it, both vectoring in from the stream and on top of this conductive target. But then when we look at other geophysical data sets, for instance, we look at IP resistivity, which is a different geophysical technique we have over the same area. And we say, look, let's look at IP resistivity and similar levels of conductivity here. We've got a coincident anomaly in the same location from a different geophysical method. They're actually intersecting each other here. It's very exciting for us to see something like that. And then adding a third layer here on chargeability, which is you'd expect to see in a porphyry system, a chargeability halo in some models, enveloping this resistivity low. And that is actually what we're seeing here. So we've got a chargeability shell almost built up around here. So 3 different signatures that you'd expect to see in a porphyry target are there in a really attractive scale and tenor of anomalies. And then at the surface, we've got that anomalous geochemical results sitting on the top of it. And it's worth mentioning as well, when you look at the relative elevation level, if we went over here, across to the Filo drilling, you'd see that some of the good grades are actually occurring at a similar elevation level as these anomalies. So it's an exciting cluster of targets. And
Alan,
yeah,
question for you on that. So as you look at what you just described, Maybe this is like choosing your favorite child, but would you consider that to be, I guess, the area that you're going to drill that you're most excited about, or is that not a fair assumption?
Not a fair assumption. And the thing is, it is certainly a good target. I'm going to talk up all of them. They all have very exciting, facets to them. It's a good target for sure. It's a good target. It's not my favorite. I'm not going to tell you which my favorite is. When we drill and we make a discovery, that's the one that's my favorite. That's what I'm going to tell you. But no, it's certainly a high quality target, one that we like a lot. We like these southern ones. Really, what we've selected for this season are all high quality targets, and we just have to drill a number of things to see what we find. Um, so that's kind of the hedging I have to do here when we're doing exploration work, and so much is unknown until you drill. I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to bring in our corporate presentation to show a few more diagrams from some of the other targets. Then we'll go from there to some more questions. And yeah, unless there are some now, Jim, any questions?
No questions in the queue, but just a reminder for those on the call, please use the Q&A or the chat button. Type in your question. We'll get those answered for you.
All right. I'm just going to flick through this presentation, which is available on our website, briefly to recap some of the things we've looked at. This is the belt and the market capitalizations of our peers. This is the trend from north to south I showed you in 3 dimensions. This is the copper in soil anomaly from the top down, and I explained that it's extensive and goes across the system. Here are our new target areas. We just looked at this one here called Los Mogotes. Here it is in the top down in the geophysics, the MT geophysics at 600 meters below surface. That's Los Mogotes, Meseta. Now we're going to spend some time looking at Stockwork Hills and Cruz del Sur, and perhaps looking at a few other sections across this project. So this is satellite imagery alteration data in a different way that we've processed. And I'm going to show you now another section line drawn through Filo del Sol. So the image on the right that you're looking at is now oriented such that north is to the top of the page. So this is Filo del Sol, the green outline, which, as I've mentioned, is actually open on all sides. So don't think of it as constrained just because there's a line around it. And what you're seeing in the bottom of the page there, that's our project. So we've tilted this a little bit to the orientation you've been looking at before. Now, what you're seeing there in the blues, these blues, is resistive features in the geophysics. So when you look at geophysics, you got resistivity. I talked to you about conductive, which is low resistivity. We looked at that. What we're looking at in the blues is highly resistive, and that's what you typically get in a high sulfidation target. So running from north to south, the Meseta target is what we call a high sulfidation target for us. It's characterized by a resistive anomaly in the geophysics. Then we've got Los Mogotes, it's conductive or low resistivity. Then we've got Perla, which is another high sulfidation target. So we're going to draw a section line now through this image to look at it in kind of a side-on 3D view. So I'm going to just, for those of you who are not used to looking at sections, we start on this A prime and we end at this A, and we've basically chop a view right through here like that. And we're going to be looking this way. Okay, so let me go to that now. And here we are. So on the right-hand side, you're seeing Filo del Sol. That's A prime. On the left-hand side, you're seeing Filo Sur. That's A. And you're seeing the pit design from the Filo del Sol resource where they intend to mine, or they may do a development here. And it's marked open to the south, north, and depth. This is from their Filo del Sol mineral resource block model. We've sourced it there. Again, this is their data, so we haven't validated it. You'll have to, look to their information to check. But we've put the scale, exactly the same scale as what we have on our property on the left-hand side. None of the targets you're seeing here have been drilled. The Meseta HSE target I mentioned, the Los Mogotes porphyry target, and the Perla target, all exactly on the same section lines. It's a beautiful image, and it really kind of presents the opportunity in one page. Okay. Now that we've had some time to absorb that page, you can also look at the scale bar here. That's 2 kilometers for scale there. So these are quite substantial targets in terms of size, and we're quite excited about these targets. The other one I wanted to show you, I mentioned, is the southern target. So if I go back to the top-down view, there's this one, Stockwork Hills, where we're starting drilling today, and Cruz del Sur. So we're going to show you those as well. So in these southern targets, what you're looking at on the right-hand side here is 2 maps that are showing the same area. So these are the same area, but showing different things on each map, okay? North is to the top of the page, and this is the Stockwork Hills target, the bottom circle, and the northern circle here is the Cruz del Sur target. So there's 2 targets here. Why we like these targets? Cruz del Sur, the northern target, is shallow. It's low elevation relative to our other targets, and it's quite large. It's got a very interesting geophysical signature in that it's got, when you see this pink, yellow, pink, then dark purple block model, that's showing chargeability, and it's really getting quite high coming into the core of the anomaly. So highly chargeable in the geophysics. And then it's also got a strongly magnetic anomaly as well. And that magnetic anomaly is what we're going to be targeting this season, where surface trenches at the surface of that anomaly have actually yielded some very interesting results, including 33 meters at 0.64 grams gold. The last 3 meters here in that geological unit at 2.4 grams. So quite compelling stuff at the surface, and historically underexplored because of a abundance of transported alluvial material, basically sand from the top of the mountains covered up a lot of the geology. So this place has not really been explored until we came along. We did these trenches, we did this geophysics, and we've identified this target. Sorry, I changed page by accident. But we identified this target in our work, and it's not from historic work. So we're quite excited about this one. In the south, we've got more copper numbers in our surface trenching, and it's got a nice chargeability anomaly as well. So here's some of the copper numbers that we're seeing in the trenches. 147 meters here and another 100 meters here of mineralized rock. And we want to drill into this chargeable target as well. So taking a moment to show you a section line here as well, we would have that section running from the northeast. Give me a second here. The northeast would be A prime here, and to the southwest. And that line comes through like this. Okay. And that's where we're going on the next page. And that's here. So A prime on the right, A on the left. And you can see the trenches sitting above. In the north, sitting above a strongly magnetic feature. It looks like a great target because the block model is also showing coincident chargeability. So good geochemistry, good geophysics in both mag and chargeability. Losing my voice here. Then in the south, you got these exciting trench numbers here with good copper numbers up to, this 12 meters at 0.3 grams gold roughly and 0.3% copper. These are great numbers to see sitting above an undrilled chargeability anomaly. We have a proximal drill hole from historic data that's not into the target. You can see it's kind of clipped the edges of it, but in the base of that historic drill hole, you've got some pretty high molybdenum numbers, and that's the kind of thing that you see proximal to a porphyry system, higher moly numbers. So these are 2 more compelling targets, and we have an inventory of more targets here that happily. I think you should really spend some time going through the presentation in your own time, and some of the videos on our website to learn more about kind of what we're doing here. But we're excited. Here's the last slide of the presentation. This is our field camp. This photo was taken, I think, earlier this year. I actually took this with a drone maybe 2 years ago. It's probably a bit bigger now, but we've got our core shed there where we process our drill core and take it down for further analysis. Cars all parked, accommodation, offices, kitchen, and toilets. We're really set up here for what we're doing. And this is just to give you an idea of this is a real initiative. It takes a lot of work to get this stuff done. And we've been here 3 years. We intend to execute on what we're saying we're going to do. So with that, I end that component and come to the Q&A.
Excellent. Thanks, Alan. Question out here, and just a reminder for everyone on the call today, use the navigation pane, type in your question or raise your hand. Speaking of raising hands, Gator, I thought I saw your hand up earlier. If that's the case, please put it up again and or type in your question. Um, I see your hand up. I will go to you now. You should be
Oh,
good. You just need to unmute your microphone.
this is the
Hey,
first time we're getting someone actually ask directly.
well,
Cool.
the Q&A wasn't working for me, and I sent you an email, Jim, about, I don't know if you saw. I imagine you were on this. So,
Oh, you sent it to my email.
yeah, no worries, no worries. So, Alan, my one question is, as I see the payoff upstream, right? But as you do go upstream, is there going to be more challenges than, you know, that you wouldn't maybe see right at some of the lower grade stuff downstream, right? It just looks like you're going deep up into these valleys, right? And ultimately, where are you looking to bring in the next partner or just next outside capital? Is it going to be debt? Is it going to be equity, JV? Like what do you see the vision, right?
I understood the second question, but I confess I didn't understand the first question about the
Oh,
downstream and the upstream.
oh yeah, no, just as you're going, upstream, it seems like you're going elevation. I get the deposits they were saying at the same elevation, right? But it just looked like the terrain it's steepened, it's just deeper valleys just from looking at everything you showed us on the maps.
So the question there is, yeah,
So
can
does
you
that
maybe?
make the high grade stuff not as much of a big payoff if it's ultimately going to be a lot more expensive? Like, yeah, the stuff's up there, right? But, you know, how lucrative is it going to be at the end of the day? Because it just
Uh,
it's
yeah.
that big of a difference.
How? Okay. Just tell me if I didn't address the question properly. I'll try. Uh, what I understand you're saying is you're high up and it has to be really good to be worth it. Is
Right.
that more or less? Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Well, these guys are high. Look, this is actually this is the section I showed you before. You see on the left that 5,000 meters relative level. Okay, so that's the elevation. Look, the terrain comes up and down. This discovery at Filo, no question, is high up, right? It's in the sky, 5,000 meters. There are challenges with operating there, but you have to understand, in 30 years of looking for greenfield copper discoveries everywhere in the world, including at lower elevations, this has been the biggest, largest scale discovery that's been found at Filo del Sol. And it's been the focus of a lot of interest from the biggest mining company in the world. I think BHP, maybe not the biggest anymore. It's probably eclipsed by a Chinese company now, but there isn't many high quality tier one scale deposits with grade like this Filo del Sol anywhere in the world being found today anyway. Like the big ones have already been found decades ago. So is it worth it? Yeah, it appears that it is, just from the fact that this is it. Like, this is the global winner of the copper discovery race in the last 30 years. So if we find something, it's still an if at this stage. If we find something of similar grades, like when you see here these really dark red areas, there's really high grade. Then we're off to the races. It's definitely going to be worth it. And that's something that happened in this district already. Once Filo was found here, this is Filo. Later, a year later, Filo, it's always been this explored as a low grade system. Once they found the high grade component in 2021, the next year, these people at NGEx drilled into this completely new system that hadn't been drilled prior. And they found also really high grade, large scale intervals of copper and gold. Their company went from a valuation of about 100 million Canadian dollars, around roughly maybe 150, to now 5 billion in the space of 2 years, 2.5 years. So it's happened once, then they've made it happen again. If we are able to tap into anything like what we're seeing at those two companies, then there's no reason for me to believe that we couldn't also see an uplift like that. The condition there, of course, is that we hit grade and scale and big intervals. And I can't know before we do it whether or not we will. But if we do, then yes, like it's worth it. If that does that answer your question?
No, it definitely does. That's a great map. I think the visual of it, right? Definitely seems like you guys are on the richer stuff up there, and it'll pay off if it's like you said, when you do, hopefully, find that stuff and prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to find it and prove it up. And the second question was where are we looking to find our capital? And again, it's kind of conditional on what we find. If we're finding exciting things, we'll have people throwing money at us. We are being approached and engaged by multiple categories of investors or potential partners, big mining companies, medium mining companies, private equity type funds, quite regularly and almost all the time. And that's in advance of actually finding significant discovery. So if we find it, then I think there will be lots of interest from there. So that will be kind of like, let's wait and see what we find before we talk about what's next in terms of capital.
Does that make sense, Gator?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just, curious of, the capital structure and people getting in now versus a lot of debt coming in there or
Okay,
versus
there's no,
equity.
like what I can
Right.
tell you, there's no debt right now, and there's
Mhm.
not going to be debt. This exploration companies don't really get to borrow money because they're very much on the riskier end of town. So banks, they're not bankable really. So it's likely to be equity or partnerships that finances companies like this moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Gator, thank you. I'm going to put you back on mute. Yeah, and we'll get to the next question here.
So I see the question. Should I read it out, Jim?
Sure.
Question is from Tom. He says, seems like the company has been diligent over the last few years in preparation for the drill program. What more could have been done prior to drilling to increase the success of the drill program, if anything? Look, there's never going to be an end to what could have been done prior to drilling, but I feel like we've struck a balance here of spent enough time collecting key data sets that help with targeting. And that's going through the main ones, geology, where we've done significant mapping, the geophysics, where we've spent good money on a good type of technology to get good coverage of magnetics, IP, MT, and so on, where we've done alteration analysis, where we've done extensive sampling with really cutting edge assay techniques, and where we've kind of gone through all the historic drilling multiple times to see if there's anything to glean from the insights there. Then we kind of reviewed and leveraged not just public domain scientific papers from the neighboring deposits, but also the people who wrote them have come and worked and helped us out in our targeting efforts. So we've engaged really the experts of copper discoveries, not just to anywhere, but like next door to us. So that doesn't mean that you couldn't do more. You could always sample more. You could always do more trenching and so on. But there comes a kind of a cost benefit stage where you're going to learn a lot more and get more value from actually drilling a few holes into these things. So I think in many of the targets we've reached that stage. Those are the ones that we're aiming to drill this season. And in some of the other targets, they're not yet at that stage. And then in this season, we're going to take the time to try and advance them by doing lower risk, lower cost activities, like perhaps shorter RC holes or more trenching or more mapping, depending on the target. So we're working on that in parallel with the drill campaign on the developed targets.
Excellent. And can you, Alan, just sort of give a high-level overview of what the drill program will look like in terms of parameters, whether that's in meters, dollars, timing of how long the drilling will take place, when results might be expected?
Yeah, I'll the high level. I think we just move to a slide that's appropriate for this. This slide has the names of the prospects I mentioned before, but I'll recap now. We're starting a drill campaign that's phase one is to be 5,000 meters of drilling, diamond core drilling. We're starting to work in the lower altitude targets while we move up to the higher altitude targets as the season progresses. Stockwork Hills, Cruz del Sur. Let me turn on my pen. Stockwork Hills, Cruz del Sur, Rincon, Camino, Los Mogotes, and Meseta are the portfolio of targets we aim to address this season. And the 5,000 meters doesn't mean it's going to be spread evenly across them. We're actually being very dynamic with the program here. And if we're finding in an area good mineralization or making a discovery, we'll probably double down there. And if we're not finding much or we have a reason to reprioritize, we will do that. So this is like a first pass filter that you're looking at now. We're doing 5,000 meters. We should be running the program through to end of April. News flow from initial drill holes can be expected roughly in January, conditional on a number of factors there. But as we progress through, expect to hear from us on what we're finding. There is a chance that we can push the accelerator and drill more if we're finding encouraging mineralization. But we'll wait and see what we're finding in the initial holes first before making that call.
And approximately what would be the budget for the 5,000 meters?
About 15 million Canadian dollars. So to
Okay.
remember, just refresh your memory, we're at $25 million now, and we're projected to spend about 15 million.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think, one of the comments you made earlier was something that I wanted to make sure was pointed out here. You talked about the Filo discovery hole back in 2021, and I estimated that their market cap was probably, plus or minus similar to where you are today, at the time. And it shows you that, in the course of a 4-year period, incredible amount of value can be created. And then NGEx did a very similar thing a year later with their drill. They had probably had a market cap similar to yours, found their discovery hole and have since, drilled it out and created significant value. So where you're sitting today looks like, for all intents and purposes, a similar opportunity to those two companies. Um, and you haven't put your discovery hole out yet.
That's right. We're working on that. Let's get out there and do it.
Yeah. So that's what I think everyone should take away from today's call is that that's where the excitement lies. Limited to no drilling has been really done on the company's property, and um, all of that is going to be changing in the next foreseeable future. And with that, my two questions for you as we sort of come to a conclusion here. Uh, you heard these before, but one, what keeps you up at night? And then two, what are you most excited about?
And I think I've been giving the same answer for both questions. Keeps me up is the drill results. Most excited for the drill results. This is the culmination of 3 years of work and lots of time, and it wasn't easy consolidating even the ground to get here. And we're really excited to try and make a discovery here and provide value to our shareholders who have supported. Keeps me up at night is the general operational headaches of working a exploration program at high altitude here and the things that could go wrong along the way. But that's a healthy stress that keeps us focused on delivering. And of course, the stress of what you're pulling out of the ground and what it's going to grade at. But that's the part and parcel of treasure hunting here. That's what we're doing. So no, it's a fun project to be part of. There's very few places in the world where you could be. I mean, there's basically one. There's only one place in the world where you could be right next to the biggest copper find of the last 30 years, and we're sitting in that seat. So, it's exciting and I would say rewarding place to be exploring.
For sure. The opportunity is now, the opportunity is there. We are excited to see what unfolds with the drill program. We'll be sure to keep everybody up to date going forward on the company's progress, drill results, etc. I'll hand out today's keyword. Today's keyword is essentially what this company is all about from now until April, which is drilling. So drilling is today's keyword. And maybe Alan, I turn it back to you for, I'll call it elevator pitch, closing thoughts, or anything you want to add or emphasize.
Oh, I think I've emphasized plenty here, but if you're interested in copper and gold, which I think a lot of people are as an investment thesis, then you would know that copper deposits are difficult to find. Exploration can be highly rewarding, and I think this is a really good place to be exploring. And it's been rewarding for our peers. We hope we can do the same.
Excellent. I thank you for your time and for sharing the story, and I wish everyone a great weekend one day early.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yep. Thanks, Alan.